Welcome back to the Shinsei Fitness Show, where we talk about everything related to your health, your fitness, your well-being. The importance and the difficulty of mindset. In this segment, I want to talk about one of the most important aspects of the Shinsei method, but also one of the most important aspects of Shinsei fitness, the whole concept of Shinsei. But it's much more than that, much more profound, much deeper, much wider in terms of life, business, family, existence, in a sense. Because mindset really is the foundation for everything that you do. It is the foundation for development, self-development, which is what we talk about on this show and at theshinseimethod.com. The whole concept of Shinsei is about self-development. Self-development is crucial for anything that you do in all aspects of your business and life, whether you're in a position of leadership, whether you're a parent, whether you're a student, whether you're a friend, a relative, whether you're just someone who wants to develop themselves to the best of their ability and to improve, and I'll put that in quotes because I generally don't like to use the word improvement. I prefer development. A lot of people know the word success. A lot of people know the word improvement. So they're easy to use as words. I tend not to want to use those words. I'll talk a little bit about success in this segment because it's important to understand, particularly when you're talking about fitness. What is success in your fitness program? What is success for you as an individual? That's so crucial, and one of the reasons I developed the Shinsei method as a reference, a waypoint, a compass. Really, it serves as a foundation for your process of self-development. Very often it requires a big effort. Sometimes it's very difficult to do. Because when you're talking about establishing a fitness program, if you're talking about success or anything, you're talking about self-discipline, you're talking about self-reliance to some degree. You're talking about an ability to focus, to have discipline. And unfortunately, in this culture, particularly in the American culture, and it seems like particularly today with facing a health crisis. Now, when this health crisis began, I thought that would change people to some degree. Bring people closer together, make people understand what's really important in life, maybe help them to reduce the kinds of things that they do, to make their lives simpler so that they can focus and concentrate a little bit more on things like relationships, family, work, education. But it seems to have the complete opposite effect, where people seem to be focusing even less than they used to be before, and they weren't doing it all that much in the past, unfortunately. And that brings me back to what I wanted to talk about in this segment of the show, because when you're talking about establishing a mindset, it makes a big difference what's going on around you. If many of the people around you are not considering the value of mindset, or they're not considering that discipline, concentration, focus are important for success, you're very often going to be on an island, in a sense. You're going to feel very strongly isolated in many ways. And you have to find some way just to contend with that. Now, I'm speaking from a personal experience. I'm not a psychologist. I don't offer psychological advice. I'm really talking about personal experience and what I have had to do, and that's how I developed the Shinsei method, but what I have had to do to overcome these very real, very practical, and very important challenges. Most of the challenges that I've faced have been two parts. First, internal, how I reacted to what people did, but also external. Other people's behavior, their attitudes, what they were doing, what was popular in the culture. Now, if what's popular in the culture is distractions, noises, for example, while I'm recording this, I try to establish a schedule. Usually on Tuesdays, it happens to be a Tuesday, there's a lot of noise because people next door do their lawn work. And in the area where I'm living, instead of using rakes, the simple way, with takes a little more effort, they use a lot of these blowers, these gas blowers that are supposed to be outlawed and banned, but they still use them. So there's one example. Supposed to be banned because of the environment, but people are still using them. So you get this kind of message that these kinds of things are not really terribly important. Now, if you're the type of person that follows along with that, trying to do your bit to help the environment, and you see other people not doing that, it becomes a very discouraging thing. That's just one example. So my point was, I'm trying to establish a routine to do a recording, and obviously when you're recording things, it's better to have a little bit of quiet. And these people, instead of doing what they're doing, they're noisy blowers on a regular basis, in a regular way, on a regular time, they can come anytime on Tuesday. Sometimes they come in the morning, sometimes they come in the afternoon, and it's really impossible to say which one. Now, I happen to be recording in the afternoon. I gave some time in the morning, assuming that maybe they would come in the morning, but they didn't. And now I'm dealing with and contending with noise in the background while I'm trying to focus on this very important topic. Now, I wanted to use that as an example, not to complain so much. In a sense, it's a complaint, because it's very frustrating to have to deal with that irregularity. But what I wanted to do and highlight in this segment of the show is what you have to contend with when you're trying to focus and concentrate and build and construct. You have a lot of these kind of needless distractions. Now, in the case of the gas blowers, they could use different equipment. They could use equipment that's not as noisy. They could use rakes instead of using mowers. When I mowed my lawn as a child, I used a manual mower, which has no noise at all. Now, people don't tend to use that anymore, but they could. They still exist. If you wanted to create less noise, less pollution, noise pollution, gas pollution, that's what you would do. I see very few people doing that. So it communicates the message to you that people don't really take that very seriously, although it's a very serious idea and a very serious concept. So that is what I mean when I say your environment makes a big difference for what you can and cannot do, and most importantly, it makes a big difference for how you contend with it, what kind of strategies you develop for yourself, what kind of mindset you can, in very practical terms, hope to be able to establish. And this is important to consider, because many times what happens, particularly when you're seeing people talk about things like fitness, they don't consider those very important aspects. It's like you're just supposed to, the right mindset is supposed to fall out of the sky onto you, and all of a sudden you're thinking positive. Well, it doesn't work like that. It's very difficult to think positive when you're trying to do something positive and there's noises in the background and there are people that are doing things that make it very difficult for you to do that. Now, you have to contend with that. You can't change them. I'm living in a society, we're living in a society now where people will get angry and go out there and try to engage. Well, that's not a very good idea, because that causes more problems. What I found, and this is what I learned in studying self-defense, is better to disengage. But the problem is still there. The noise is still there. The distractions are still there. The people not providing support, that's all still there. In your family, in your work, in your business, wherever you are. You're dealing with a culture, unfortunately, that doesn't put a high enough premium, from my perspective, it doesn't place a high enough premium on things like concentration. But you need concentration if you're going to develop a fitness program. You need concentration to avoid injury in fitness, let's say. You need concentration if you're going to develop a level of competence in your fitness program, in your training program, in your work, in your profession, in your family, as a student, in your educational life. Concentration and discipline and focus are very valuable traits and characteristics that cannot be devalued or cannot be ignored if those are important to you. But if you're living in a culture that tends to downplay these values, what do? That's one of the reasons I developed the Shinsei method and the whole concept of Shinsei as a life principle method. Because these very important ideas and values serve as the foundation for your mindset, or they don't. But they still remain important, no matter what mindset is important to you. And what I am trying to impart to you in this segment of the show is the idea that mindset is crucial. And these values, discipline, focus, concentration, still remain important for developing mindset, no matter what's going on around you. So getting to the point where you can focus no matter what is going on around you is really what is required. A lot of athletes may understand this to some degree, but it's the same thing. A lot of athletes, what you'll hear, they may focus when they're trying to do their work, or when they're playing when they're in competition, but then they go out and drink and smoke and do everything else that's completely contrary to this idea of focus. What I'm talking about is being consistent in what you're doing and maintaining a consistency in the application of the principles that are important to you, the values that are important to you, no matter what's going on around you. And that requires a level of inner strength and a balanced self-trust, particularly self-trust. This idea, this recognition that you have come to a recognition or a realization to yourself, again, self-discipline or self-development, you've come to a realization that this value of concentration and mindset, or these values of concentration and mindset, are so crucial to developing a level of success as I've defined it, as you've defined it, as a concept. This is true success in my estimation. Success is not just characterized or defined in terms of money success. Unfortunately, that's typically what people do. Success can have a lot to do with mindset, the kind of the mindset that you've developed for yourself. And sometimes, if you're lucky, that mindset can develop into success in financial terms. But the most important from the perspective of the Shinsei method is developing a mindset that's appropriate and suitable to you. And that's why I developed the Shinsei method as a method of self-training that applies to fitness as well as it applies to business and life. And in terms of fitness, when you're developing a fitness program, those key principles are still important. Mindset, concentration, focus. And when you're developing a fitness program in particular, it's important because what has become much more popular in this country in terms of fitness are the extremes. And sometimes when you're in a mindset or you're in the mental state where you don't really feel like training, I felt like that today, light training can be very, very useful for that. You get into it rather than putting this big goal for yourself, I'm going to hit it up hard today. You're just going to work out and you're going to take it easy and nice and slow and ease into the workout. This is a very useful approach too when you're a little older. I'm 56, so you're a little older. I'm a little older. I'm middle age, I would say, in that range. But some people are a little older than me. Some people are younger. I'm kind of in the middle. But still, I can't do what I was able to do when I was in my 20s or younger, when I was in high school. But that doesn't mean that you stop training. You still approach it in a level that is appropriate to you. And again, before you embark on any training program, it's important to follow the advice of a competent medical professional, preferably a sports medicine doctor that focuses on your particular type of sports training. I usually am talking about weight training or resistance training, to some degree self-defense or martial arts training. But these principles apply to no matter what sport you may embark on. But it's important to talk with a professional that can properly guide you into what's appropriate to you, particularly as you get older. But the idea of light training is still very valid for anyone when they're training. And it's so crucial, or it can be so helpful to you when you're not feeling so well, when you don't really feel like taking on the day. It's one of those blasé times, and you do a little light training and suddenly your whole mindset changes. And that's so crucial too. But to get to that mindset, to get to the point where light training is an important part of your regimen, to get to the point where you can focus on things like light training and focus on the practice of light training as a valid and valuable and viable way to practice fitness, requires a certain level of inner strength and a balanced self-trust, particularly self-trust, because that's not the current culture. The current culture is distracting. The current culture is a lot of times hysterical. The current culture is very often emotional. The current culture is really, particularly in fitness, is to promote and push the extremes and extremities in everything that you do. Well, that doesn't really help you to establish a mental balance and a mental sense of well-being, profit and profitability, as I define it, as we understand it with the Shinsei method. So getting to a point where you can practice this type of fitness, this type of mindset in your work, in your business, in your fitness program, And everything that you do really requires a level of inner strength and a balanced self-trust. And those three pillars of individuality, well-being, and profitability represent a mindset as well. They become your mindset. They become your inner you. But to get to that level, again, requires that level of self-trust. Until the next time on the Shinsei Fitness Show, where we talk about everything related to your health, your fitness, your well-being.